Good evening, everybody. This is our attempt at getting the year done and getting some work done a little bit at home. So lucky you, do not have to hear me rant about it in school, and we can do some more review. So this is the first of the two nightly video series that you will do, and we'll get out of a little bit of class time. So first order of business is this is 8.10 waste reduction. So the 3 R's, that's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about reducing, reusing, and recycling. So the objectives here, recycling, you probably do that all at home. That's the taking materials and they bring them to a place and they either shred them up or remelt them and turn them into something new. It's great. It definitely reduces the use or the demand for minerals, but unfortunately it is very costly. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Composting, some of you also may do. That's taking organic matter and letting it decompose with usually some sort of decomposing box, and that could be used as fertilizer. Some of you may have that in your homes. E-waste, that would be the getting rid of materials that are in computers and tablets. Some of the heavy metals are bad for the environment, but more importantly, they can be reused and save some money and kind of cut down on having to dig up some of those real precious metals. So those will be the things we're going to talk about in 8.10. So first what are the 3 R's? And again, we just mentioned the 3 R's are to reduce, to reuse, and to recycle. So those are your 3. And the most sustainable of them is to reduce the use of things. And what you can do by one of the best ways to reduce waste is to use reusable water bottles or to do things like ride your bike. Those would be all nice ways to reduce. And again, sometimes some people don't want to hear this, but ways to help reduce would be buying second-hand clothes. And I know there's actually a trend in that these days, going to thrift stores and so on. And also to use old wood for furniture. And there is a lot of that going on in a lot of these kind of home shows on the home networks and stuff. So reusing old barn wood and reusing old wood from tables and things can make some really trendy new materials for your home. Also, you can wash and reuse takeout containers, and that is one of the major things that we do here, or at least I do at my house. And what's nice is if anyone is going to take anything from your house as leftovers, you can just give them the old takeout containers and you don't mind. Or you can, at least use them one more time and then throw them out. So that is a very good way to kind of keep the plastics down. Recycling is basically taking a solid waste and turning it into a new product. Glass and plastics are very good and very easy ways to do that. Unfortunately, this is not as sustainable as you would think because, again, a lot of this recycling takes a lot of energy. So it is the least sustainable because of the amount of energy needed to convert these materials. So lots and lots of energy needed. Okay, once again, it is the least sustainable of the 3 R's because of the tremendous amount of energy needed to do it. So that should wrap up the bottom of that page of notes. Now we will flip to the top of the next page, so hopefully you got all of those blanks. So what are some pros for recycling? Well, some pros for recycling is it definitely reduces the demand for new products, especially metals and wood, which can cause habitat destruction and soil erosion, as you know. And one of the things recycling is another pro is it reduces landfill volume. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what landfills are in detail, but it's in essence a pile of garbage. So if you can recycle and not throw all of these plastic and metal and glass things into the landfill, it will clearly reduce the volume in the landfill. There are cons, however, and some of the cons are it is pretty costly, and it does require a significant amount of energy, and there is a lot of sorting which needs to be done. And again, that requires people to do it, and that is machinery and all of that, that it's not as easy as you think, especially if people throw away or put into the recycle can the wrong recycling. Not everything is recyclable. That is those numbers on the bottom. So those are the pros and cons of recycling. And you can see most of the things back in 1980. I thought this was actually a pretty interesting graph. Back in 1980, 100% of the things were thrown away. So when I was a kid, you just threw it away. Then they began to incinerate or burn some of the garbage. And again, we'll talk more about that in the landfill section or the solid waste section. Good and bad. It definitely reduces volume, but it causes a tremendous amount of greenhouse gas release and toxins, which is bad. And you can see this graph goes up to 2015, and what's nice is our recycling has taken a much bigger chunk than it did back in when I was a kid in 1980, when we just threw everything in the garbage. Composting. Again, some of you may do this, which is kind of neat. I wish I got involved in it, but I will use some compost that I get from the landfill area by my house. I have yet to do this though, but Mr. Graziano does, if you know him. So composting is organic matter, and it could be anything: food scraps, coffee grinds, paper, yard waste. It could be anything. And under very controlled conditions, it will actually turn into this kind of, I guess we'll call it, it's kind of like this area right here, where it turns into this black kind of, I don't really know what to call it. It's not dirt, but it kind of looks like dirt. And it's nice because it's rich in organic material, and then you can mix it with your soil, and it's nice. It's a good organic material for your soil and for your garden. And again, it will help reduce landfill volume, because when people throw away trees and leaves and stuff, that takes up space. And what is also very nice is if you have a company, you can then resell that compost, especially if you are in the farming business, because farmers need a lot of it. So it's a good way to control those products going into the landfill and a way to sell them. Unfortunately, however, if you live near one of these places, it stinks bad, very, very bad. And you may get unwanted pests. You may have a lot of birds flying around, making bird poopy on your cars and things. And there may be rats and raccoons and other things that you may not want in the area. So that would be some positives and negatives of composting. E-waste we talked about very briefly, but Americans in general and a lot of people throw out a ton of computer materials. And e-waste is basically the waste from electronics, and it could be anything from a television, a computer, and a phone, tablet, whatever. And unfortunately, what people really don't understand is inside of those tablets and phones, there is metal, and some of this metal has to be mined, and it's not going to last forever. So if we can recycle, this keeps some of the toxic materials out of the landfills and allows less habitat destruction to dig up those metals that are needed. So the toxins, once again, of course, can get into the groundwater, which is not good. But hopefully, if life is good and we collect these e-waste, and once again at my local landfill they do, and then we can recycle and reuse to recreate new electronics from the, in essence, old materials. Now again, all the plastic and junk like that, that's a different kind of recycling, but that metal, that needs to be dug up. And of course, you can sell the goodies to other countries. So those are definite advantages to collecting e-waste. Don't just throw your computers and tablets in the garbage. Bring them to be properly disposed of. Okay, and how can we turn waste into energy? Well, as everything else, if you burn anything, it generates heat. So you can see here that when we incinerate any of the wastes, that could be used again to reduce volume, which is good. But it creates heat. And heat, as you know, heats up the water, which creates steam, which turns turbines and generates electricity. So in some cases, incinerated waste can generate electricity. Also, methane gas is produced from the decomposition in landfills, and that can be collected and burned and used for electricity. So that is, same deal. And again, they reduce landfill volume, and it can produce electricity without mining and burning fossil fuels because they're already there, and without fracking, which is nice. So that will do it for this section. So hopefully those notes are all filled in for you, and we'll talk about it in class. Okay, see you soon.